The air was thick with tension as we sat around the mahogany dining table in what my brother called his dream home. The chandelier above cast a warm glow over plates of half-eaten roast beef and mashed potatoes. It should have been a cozy family dinner, but instead, it felt like walking into a battlefield where I was the unwitting target. My brother, Ryan, leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of red wine with an air of superiority. His wife, Vanessa, dabbed her lips delicately with a napkin before turning to me with that smug smile I'd grown accustomed to seeing over the years. "You know, Claire," Vanessa began, her voice dripping with condescension, "it's not too late for you to start living life properly. You've always been so frugal." She let the word hang in the air like an accusation. "Live poor, die poor. That's what they say." I forced a tight smile, gripping my fork just a little tighter. This wasn't the first time they had mocked my lifestyle. To them, my decision to live modestly, to prioritize experiences over possessions, savings over splurging, was laughable. They didn't understand why someone would choose simplicity when they could flaunt wealth instead. Ryan chimed in, clearly enjoying himself. "Seriously, sis. Look at this place." He gestured grandly to the high ceilings, marble countertops, and sprawling windows overlooking their meticulously landscaped backyard. "This is how you live. Not some tiny apartment filled with second-hand furniture." Their words stung, but I refused to let them see it. Instead, I sipped my water slowly, letting the moment stretch until it became almost unbearable. Then, with deliberate calm, I set down my glass and smiled, a real one this time. "Well," I said, reaching into my bag. "Since we're talking about houses," I pulled out a folded document and slid it across the table toward them. "Take a look at this." Ryan frowned, picking up the paper curiously. Vanessa craned her neck to read it over his shoulder. For a few seconds, there was only silence. And then Ryan's face went pale. This can't be right," he stammered, flipping through the pages. "How do you have the deed to our house?" Vanessa gasped, snatching the document from him. Her eyes scanned the lines furiously, disbelief morphing into panic. "What kind of trick is this?" she demanded, glaring at me. "No trick," I replied evenly. "Just good timing and smarter investments. To truly understand how I ended up holding the deed to Ryan and Vanessa's dream home, you need to go back several years. Our relationship hadn't always been this strained. Growing up, Ryan and I were close. He was 2 years older than me, and while we bickered like any siblings, there was a bond between us that felt unbreakable. That changed after our parents passed away unexpectedly when I was 22 and Ryan was 24. Mom and Dad left behind a modest inheritance, a small sum of money, and their old house in the suburbs. At the time, Ryan was fresh out of college, working entry-level jobs and struggling to make ends meet. I was still in school, juggling classes and part-time work. We decided to sell the house and split the proceeds equally, using the funds to get on our feet. But here's where things diverged. Ryan saw the money as an opportunity to upgrade his lifestyle immediately. He bought a flashy car, moved into a trendy apartment downtown, and started frequenting expensive restaurants. Within months, his share of the inheritance was gone. I, on the other hand, took a different approach. I invested most of my portion into low-risk stocks and mutual funds. What little I spent went toward practical needs: tuition, rent, groceries. Friends teased me for being boring, and even Ryan rolled his eyes at my cheap habits. But I didn't care. I wanted stability, security, and the freedom to build something meaningful. Over the years, our paths continued to diverge. Ryan married Vanessa, a woman who shared his love for luxury and status symbols. Together, they chased the American dream, or at least their version of it. Meanwhile, I focused on building my career as a financial advisor and quietly growing my investments. By the time I turned 30, I had amassed a comfortable nest egg, thanks to smart decisions and patience. Ryan and Vanessa, however, weren't doing nearly as well as they pretended. Behind their designer clothes and Instagram-perfect vacations lay mounting debt and shaky finances. Still, they never missed an opportunity to criticize my choices. Why bother saving all that money if you're not going to enjoy it? Vanessa once asked during a family gathering. "You're young. Live a little." At the time, I brushed off her comments. But deep down, their constant judgment wore on me. Every remark about my cheap lifestyle felt like a jab at my values. Little did they know, those values were about to pay off in ways they couldn't imagine. Fast forward to 6 months ago. I received a call from a real estate agent named Lisa, who specialized in distressed properties. Over coffee, she told me about a foreclosure auction happening in a desirable neighborhood. One particular property caught my attention, a spacious colonial-style home with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a beautifully landscaped yard. "It's perfect for flipping," Lisa explained. "With a bit of renovation, you could double your investment." But as I toured the house, I realized it wasn't just a project. It was a gem waiting to shine. Sure, it needed updates, but its bones were solid. Something about it spoke to me, and I knew I had to buy it. The catch? The auction date was fast approaching, and I'd need cash up front to secure the winning bid. Fortunately, years of disciplined investing meant I had the liquidity to act quickly. I made an offer, won the auction, and closed the deal within weeks. Once the purchase was finalized, I hired contractors to handle renovations. New hardwood floors, updated appliances, fresh paint, the works. Within 3 months, the house looked like something straight out of a magazine spread. When Lisa suggested listing it for sale, I hesitated. Something told me to hold on to it, for now. And then fate intervened. One evening, Ryan called me out of the blue. "Hey, sis," he said, his tone unusually cheerful. "Vanessa and I are hosting a family dinner next weekend. We want to show off our new place." My stomach sank. A new house? How could they afford it? As much as I tried to push aside my suspicions, curiosity got the better of me. So, I accepted the invitation, determined to find answers. When I arrived at their new house, I recognized it instantly. It was my house, the very one I'd purchased and renovated. My heart raced as I stepped inside, taking in the familiar details. Had they somehow found out and bought it without telling me? Or worse, had someone scammed me? As the evening unfolded, Ryan and Vanessa couldn't stop boasting about their supposed achievement. They talked about securing a great deal on the property and how proud they were of themselves for finally achieving their dream. Listening to them, I pieced together the truth. They genuinely believed they owned the house. That's when I realized what must have happened. During the renovation process, I'd used a shell company to handle the paperwork, keeping my involvement anonymous. Apparently, Ryan and Vanessa had stumbled upon the listing and jumped at the chance to move in, unaware of who actually held the title. By the time dessert rolled around, I couldn't resist anymore. Pulling out the deed, I watched their expressions shift from confusion to horror. For once, I had the upper hand. "Well," I said, smiling sweetly, "since we're talking about houses." After revealing the deed, chaos erupted. Ryan stormed out of the room, muttering curses under his breath, while Vanessa fired questions at me like bullets. "What are you planning to do with it?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "Kick us out? Ruin everything we've worked for?" I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "Relax. I'm not kicking you out, at least not yet. But I think it's time we had a serious conversation about boundaries and respect." Over the next hour, I laid out my terms. They could stay in the house for now, but only if they agreed to certain conditions. First, no more mocking my lifestyle or questioning my choices. Second, they needed to acknowledge the value of financial responsibility, something they'd clearly overlooked in their pursuit of material success. Finally, I offered them a deal. If they paid me fair market rent for the next year, I'd consider selling them the house outright. Otherwise, I'd put it back on the market, and they'd have to find somewhere else to live. Ryan balked at the idea, insisting they couldn't afford rent. Vanessa, ever the pragmatist, reluctantly agreed. "Fine," she snapped. "But don't expect gratitude." In the months that followed, Ryan and Vanessa struggled to adjust to their new reality. Paying rent forced them to reevaluate their spending habits, and for the first time, they began to appreciate the importance of living within their means. As for me, I walked away from that dinner feeling lighter than I had in years. Holding the deed to their dream house wasn't about revenge. It was about proving a point. Success isn't measured by the size of your house or the brand of your car. It's about making smart choices, staying true to your values, and knowing when to stand your ground. Now, whenever Ryan or Vanessa tries to lecture me about finances, I simply smile and remind them of that fateful dinner. After all, sometimes the best lessons come wrapped in irony and a little dose of karma. But the story doesn't end there. Over the next year, Ryan and Vanessa's financial struggles worsened. Unable to keep up with the rent payments, they eventually defaulted. True to my word, I listed the house for sale. Within weeks, it sold for significantly more than I'd originally paid, thanks to the booming housing market. Meanwhile, I continued to thrive. My investments grew, and I expanded my business, opening a second office in a neighboring city. I also began mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing the lessons I'd learned along the way. Ryan and Vanessa, on the other hand, hit rock bottom. Their marriage fell apart under the weight of financial strain and mutual resentment. Ryan blamed Vanessa for convincing him to buy a house they couldn't afford, while Vanessa accused him of mismanaging their finances. One day, I ran into Ryan at a local cafe. He looked older, wearier, and far less arrogant than the man who had mocked my cheap lifestyle just a year earlier. For a moment, we stood in awkward silence. "I guess you were right," he admitted finally, his voice heavy with regret. "About everything." I nodded, offering him a small, genuine smile. "It's never too late to change, Ryan. Start small. Be patient. And remember, success isn't about shortcuts. It's about building something real." He looked at me, surprised by my lack of bitterness. "Thanks, Claire. I needed to hear that." As I walked away, I felt a profound sense of peace. Revenge wasn't my goal, it never had been. The greatest satisfaction came from knowing that I had stayed true to myself, even when others doubted me. And in the end, that was worth far more than any amount of money or material possessions.